Here's today's First Word Daily Devotion.
Here we are at February the 14th, and we come providentially on this Valentine's Day of 2022 to calibrate our hearts a bit as we look at the Exodus narrative, Exodus 31 and 32, to see this incident of the golden calf, this incident where the affections of the heart of God's people is challenged. But notice this first, before we get into the golden calf. It's important for us to realize that the Lord desires every aspect of our lives to be dedicated to the worship of Him. We learn this from the way that He dealt with His people. He has given you skills. He's given you opportunities. He has fashioned you with your particular desires so that you can turn those desires into something pleasing to Him. And so specifically in Exodus chapter 31 at verse 3, notice that they are talking about individuals that have been filled with the Spirit of God. Skip down to verse 6, those who have given to all able men ability, that they may make all that I have commanded you. And so God raises up these skilled leaders, these craftsmen with a particular skill, and now He's going to call those craftsmen to build the tabernacle. He's going to call those craftsmen to build a dwelling, to build an ark for the Lord. And so that's important for us as we think about our place, as we continue reading the Bible. God has something particular set out for us to do. But let's point out again here in verse 11, according to all that I command you, you shall do. There again, God is about testing the hearts of the people. But then look at this jewel that we have here in verse 13. It says, you are to speak to the people of Israel and say, above all, you shall keep my Sabbaths, for this is a sign between me and you throughout your generations. Now, here's a key phrase, that you may know that I, the Lord, sanctify you. So it's not that they perform these sacrifices, and those sacrifices are sanctifying. The sacrifices, there's something behind the sacrifices that sanctifies. And behind the sacrifices is a God who sanctifies. And so let's move on then. Right after that, we have this Lord commanding this purpose, and then we move into chapter 32. Chapter 32 is another dark scene in the biblical narrative, where you have this mighty act of salvation, but we see the people neglecting the good way of the Lord and instead fashioning a god out of their own imagination. Look at what they say here in verse 4. These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And now look how God responds here in verse 9. I have seen this people, and behold, it's a stiff-necked people. This is the same kind of language that meant saving initially. God saw and He heard their affliction. And now God sees their disobedience. Look at this, verse 19. And as soon as he came near the camp and saw the calf of the dancing, Moses' anger burned hot, threw the tablets out of his hand, and broke them at the foot of the mountain. And here we have this insurrection against a theophany, or a theocracy rather. This insurrection against the rule and the reign of God. Pointed out here in verse 31. Moses returned to the Lord and said, alas, this people has sinned a great sin. They have made for themselves gods of gold. But now, if you will forgive their sin, but if not, look at how Moses loves the people. If not, please blot me out of your book that you have written. Here Moses is offering himself as a substitute sacrifice for the sins of the people. But the Lord said to Moses, whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book. And now go lead the people to the place about which I have spoken to you. Behold, my angel shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I visit, I will visit their sin upon them. Then the Lord sent a plague on the people, because they made the calf that the one Aaron had made. And then we turn our attention to Matthew chapter 26, and here we see a different kind of denial. Here we see Judas denying Jesus. And a couple of points for you to notice in verse 30. They had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. So even as they receive the news as worship, and Jesus makes sure that they have their hearts again tuned to what needs to be. Verse 35, Peter said to him, "Even if I must die with you, I will not deny you." And the disciples said the same thing. If only that was true of us. And there again, as we're reading the Bible this year together, pay attention to the pattern. God is after most of all. He wants our heart. More than anything else, God desires our hearts to sing His praise.